Hello and welcome to another video review. This is Star Wars Empire at War Forces of Corruption for PC. This is the expansion pack to the real-time strategy game Star Wars Empire at War. It was developed by Petroglyph and published by LucasArts in October of 2006, several months after the original game, and it was generally met with about the same reception as the base game. Pretty good reception. But the main questions here are, what does Forces of Corruption add to the table that will set it apart from just base Empire at War? Is it just a matter of adding in some new units, some new planets and such like that? Or did they actually overhaul some mechanics and really implement the new content in a very meaningful way? Well, in terms of presentation, there's really not all that much to say about it, considering that it's basically the exact same graphics and everything as the original Empire at War. They did add in some new units, some new characters and such like that, and that artwork is all certainly up to the same standard of quality that the original Empire at War had. And it definitely still succeeds where the base game did, in that the space battles look pretty awesome, land battles look like a bunch of dudes in vehicles going up against each other, and it all generally looks a lot like you would expect Star Wars to look. They didn't really do any major changes to the interface or the visuals at all. So, again, there's not really too much to talk about. It's just that the new stuff fits the quality standard of the old. And the sound design is pretty much the same. The new units and such like that, of course, have new sound effects, new voice clips, and it all is, again, the same level of quality as the base game. So it all definitely feels like Star Wars in that regard as well. You still got the John Williams soundtrack supplemented with Frank Klepacki's stuff. And so it all works very well together to create a very, very solid presentation. With, of course, the main thing giving it charm being the fact that it is a Star Wars game and it adheres to the license very, very well. But ultimately what really matter here are the story and the gameplay, and the story in this revolves around the new faction that they introduced with this, known as the Zan Consortium. They're a sort of neutral faction between the Rebel Alliance and the Galactic Empire, in that they aren't really necessarily good or evil. They do a lot of evil things, but they're not necessarily pure evil, because they're really more concerned about making a profit and more concerned with just maintaining a huge criminal empire than actually being an oppressive regime or a liberating faction or something like that. But the real meat of this story takes place after the events of A New Hope, where the Death Star was destroyed, and now the rebels are just kind of on the defensive after that. And what you end up having is a situation in which Tiber Zan escapes from prison and attempts to orchestrate another rise to power. And in doing this, he recovers an artifact that he stole from Jabba the Hutt at one point, and they start looking into the secrets of this artifact because it's about a 4,000 or so year old Sith artifact. And while that's going on, Tiber is trying to reestablish his massive criminal empire. And that's how it goes for most of the game. There is another plot concerning the Emperor's hidden treasury vaults and trying to find more information on those and exploit them. And the plot itself ends up being a bit scatterbrained, but at the same time, it does win a few points for being an original story in the Star Wars universe. Instead of being like the campaigns in the base Empire at War, which feel pretty stale and don't really add all that much to Star Wars lore, this one at least tries to do something with it, even if it doesn't always succeed all that well. So it, again, wins some bonus points for that, but ultimately the plot is not particularly great in this thing. It has its moments, don't get me wrong, but the plot as a whole does suffer from the game being a real-time strategy game and the plot not being the main focus of it. Which of course leads me into the gameplay, which is basically what you would expect after having played the base Empire at War, at least if you're playing as the Rebels of the Empire. You see, they got a bunch of new units and a few new abilities and such like that, but then there's the new faction, the Zan Consortium, which is pretty interesting because it doesn't play like either of the other two. The Empire and the Rebellion are fairly straightforward, although the Rebels have some interesting things with regards to technology. But that was all established in the base Empire at War. When you get to Forces of Corruption, the Xan Consortium doesn't play like either of the other two, in that it has an entirely new mechanic called Corruption. This actually allows you to gain bonuses from various planets without actually conquering them. Even though you can conquer planets if you want, and it's actually a pretty good idea to do that at least some of the time. Not necessarily all of the time, but some of the time at the very least. Because corruption gets you a long way, but it can't get you everything. And the way it works is you have these units called Defilers, which can go to a special slot on the campaign map for a various planet, and they will be able to undertake various missions that will each give you different effects. Some of them will give you just credit bonuses, some of them will give you unit bonuses, some of them will do other things entirely, and it's just kind of interesting to see the wide variety of things corruption actually does. It's a very interesting mechanic. It's just that it's also attached to everything that was in Empire at War, so all of the problems that that game had are present and accounted for in Forces of Corruption. You still got a lot of rock, paper, scissors in the gameplay, you still got land battles that are mind-bogglingly boring, and you still got space battles that are really the only battles you should be undertaking because they're the only ones that are actually kind of cool, even though mechanically they're mostly the same as the land battles, it's just that they're accomplished in space. And so the kind of maddening chaos that can result in the space battles is just considered okay, because it's awesome to watch. On land, not so much. And that's really the main problem that Empire at War Forces of Corruption has. It does introduce some new mechanics, new heroes, new planets, and so on, and it does provide some different tweaks here and there to various unit strengths and weaknesses and such like that. But at the same time, it's still tied to the base Empire at War mechanics. Which of course means if you didn't like Empire at War's mechanics, you're not going to like Forces of Corruption's mechanics any better. You might be able to get something out of the Xan Consortium, but that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, the game doesn't really do anything to keep you playing it. It's just one of those things where, hey, it's a Star Wars RTS, that means it must automatically be good, right? And, I mean, it's not a bad game, once again. The base game wasn't bad either, but I don't really have much fun with it at all. There are a few fun things about it, mostly in how ridiculous some of the Xan Consortium units are. I mean, one of them is a guy who has a sack, and whenever he attacks things, he starts poking the sack with a stick until an Ewok comes running out of it toward the thing that he's attacking and just blows up in its face, which is hilarious and ridiculous, but that's the only thing that really keeps you going to this thing. It's the fact that it's a Star Wars RTS, and some of it is just completely and utterly absurd. But as far as being an actual real-time strategy game, you could do a lot better than this. And once again, I have infinitely more fun playing Galactic Battlegrounds than I do this. Again, it's not a bad game. If you liked Empire at War, you'll probably like Forces of Corruption. But once again, if you're a more hardcore RTS fan, you got so many other options to choose from. And this one won't be able to hold your interest for very long unless you're just a really big Star Wars fan. Luckily, in Forces of Corruption's favor, it's usually found bundled together with the base game now. You get Star Wars Empire at War Gold Edition, and it comes with both the game and the expansion pack. So you can get them both together for a pretty cheap price. But again, it's hard to wholeheartedly recommend it. It's one of those things you might want to look into if you're interested, but other than that, it's fairly unremarkable, other than its license. I give it a 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching.